Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Ask Boxing Science. In this episode we're going to be covering weight making for boxing, and I'm going to be giving my top 5 tips for an effective weight cut. I'm not a nutritionist, but I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and I've been working with hundreds of boxers over the years, and I know the impacts of weight making on performance in the gym and also the performance on fight night. So I'm going to come up with my 5 tips based on my experience on how to approach weight making a little bit safer, and also making sure that you're being more effective so your weight making and being in a weight making sport doesn't actually affect your performance in the ring. On my top 5 tips, the number 1 tip, and we could probably stop the video now, is get a nutritionist on board. Make sure that they have the right credentials and experience, and just make sure that you've been guided in the right way. And the reason why I'm saying this instead of going, right, you can do this better and this better, is because there's just been a new study that's just come out, Brown et al. 2021, and no relationship between nutritional knowledge and rapid weight loss. So even though athletes and coaches, even if they have a increased knowledge base on nutrition, they are still making the wrong decisions in weight making. They're taking up strategies to enforce kind of rapid weight loss with the boxers. Just before I go into it, I just want to give a special mention to Macaulay Owen, who's a professional boxer, and during his university studies at Coventry University, this was his dissertation, and he performed this project on 69 amateur boxers. And here's some of the facts. It's come out with a lot of numbers that are fantastic, but these are the main 4 pointers from that article. The first one is that coaches and athletes have low knowledge on carbohydrate and fluid intake compared to track and field athletes. So when athletes are, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit, restricting the fluid intake, restricting their carbs, they're actually showing like low knowledge, okay? So we need to make sure that we're having somebody to guide us through this process. So this is why I'm saying get a nutritionist on board. These are some interesting facts. This first one is quite alarming, that 21% of the population that took part in this study took part in extreme weight making protocols. So extreme means diet pills, laxatives, diuretics, and even self-induced vomiting. Okay, so 21% of the athletes that are amateur boxers are taking part in extreme weight making. That's amateur boxers, and they haven't got the time to refuel and rehydrate effectively like a professional boxer. So this is quite alarming, because you're thinking if 21% amateur boxers doing it, how many professional boxers are doing it? Also, if this 21% are going to be getting into the ring in 2, 3, 4 hours time, will they be refueled enough to make sure that they're performing to their optimum, but also making sure that they're safe at the same time? 87% take part in fluid restriction. So whether that's being in a sauna, being in a sweatsuit, not drinking for a few days. And we know that we've got low knowledge on fluid intake and fluid restrictions. So when 87%, the high majority of amateur boxers are restricting their fluid, when they're actually showing a poor knowledge base on this. So do they know, one, how much is safe and effective to restrict, how they're restricting that, the percentage of body mass that they're actually losing through fluid restriction, also now how to rehydrate. So we're showing 87%, the majority are doing it, but we know from this study that most have low knowledge on it. The decisions being made on rapid weight loss are being influenced by peers, so athletes and coaches. And the main goal is to gain a competitive advantage, and this is something that we're going to talk about in a later tip. So this is why I'm saying get a nutritionist. We can increase our knowledge, but boxers and coaches still making the wrong decisions to try and gain a competitive advantage. So getting a nutritionist on board to make sure that you're doing everything safely and to make sure that you're getting the right weight making strategies and refuel strategies to make sure that you're safe and performing well in the ring. Tip number 2 is weight descent. So instead of calling it a weight cut, calling it a weight descent, and this is something that I've picked up from Duncan French from the UFC Performance Institute when he's been talking about weight making for MMA athletes, which is obviously a massive area for them to improve. And you know, they've done a fantastic job over the past several years, and just changing the mindset of weight cutting and just managing your weight throughout a training camp, rather than thinking, right, try and cut the weight at the back end of camp, thinking about what you're doing 24 hours before or on fight week to make sure that you're making the weight. Think about how you're descending that weight through a 10 or 12 week camp. Instead of thinking, try and be as big as possible, all I need to do is cut the weight at the back end of camp. Think about bringing your weight down steadily throughout a training camp. And this brings us on to number 3, is to collect the data during that weight descent and set targets. So at Boxing Science, to make sure that we have an effective weight descent, we give our athletes target body mass for when they start camp. So that's somewhere between 12 and 15% of their body mass. Optimal would be 10%, but we know that they're going to go out and have a bit of cake after the fight. But we're not wanting them to balloon up too high. Let's say I've had athletes that come in at 20%. That just makes the weight descent a much harder task and makes it more of a camp around making weight rather than improving performance. So anything around 12 or 15% to start off a 10 to 12 week training camp. And then from there, giving them a steady rate of targets to hit week by week, a percentage that they're taking off of their body mass and percentage away from their weight target as well. And then also to compare to other training camps. So an athlete that we've had recently, they were around about 3% of where they needed to be compared to other training camps. So we had to make a few different changes rather than thinking, oh, the weight will just come off. We had to change a few things in their training and in their diet to make sure that they are back on track. And this shows the importance of collecting that data rather than doing it blind and then just hoping that the weight will just come off. You have to act 6 weeks, 8 weeks in advance rather than just waiting on fight week and then the weight making becoming an issue. Also, that collect data, if you've got a nutritionist, which you should do by now, is collect body composition goals. So rather than seeing what your weight is on a morning, actually seeing what that weight consists of. So making sure that you're reducing fat mass, maintaining muscle mass, rather than just taking your weight and thinking, oh, I'll be all right on my target. So getting a good idea of your body composition is really important, and to compare that again to previous camps. Tip number 4 is don't push it to the limit. And what I mean by that is that there's certain percentages that you can take off through glycogen manipulation, through low residue diets, through water loading, and also through acute dehydration methods. Now, the reason why I say don't push it to the limit is because sometimes it doesn't fully go to plan. Let's say if you're looking to try and maximize that weight cut at the back end of camp, let's say a safe weight cut with glycogen manipulation, low residue diet and the dehydration, let's say that's around about 8 or 9% of your body mass. If something goes wrong there in the manipulation and the low residue, that will increase the amount of percentage of dehydration that you'll have to do. So instead of thinking, right, I'm going to come in as big as possible because all these numbers are going to work, I've been working with this nutritionist, everything's going to go well, your body can respond in different ways sometimes. You've got to think about probably what you're going to be hitting at the low end. So for glycogen manipulation, it's between 2 and 4%. With dehydration, some athletes can do 5%, which isn't recommended, but some athletes can do 5%. But it all depends on an athlete's ability to sweat, so what is their sweat rate, and their ability to tolerate heat exposure and dehydration as well. So some athletes have high sweat rates but low tolerance, and then flip it over. So some athletes have had low sweat rates but very high tolerance. So really, you'd be looking at around about a 3% dehydration as a sweet spot. But let's say if you are targeting that 5% and something goes wrong on the glycogen manipulation, we don't want to be above there. So yeah, even though the numbers might add up and look really good for an effective weight cut, we don't want to push our athletes to the limit, because a certain percentage goes wrong here and there, we're going to be in trouble and either missing the weight or making the weight not safe and not effective. Tip number 5 is prioritize performance instead of size. So a lot of boxers, a lot of MMA athletes want to be as big as possible in the ring to try and get an advantage over their opponent. But there's been recent studies that showed that the weight put on after a weigh-in doesn't significantly affect the outcome of a bout. So we need more of that data to reduce the dogma around trying to put on as much weight as possible, because if we're cutting all the way through training camp and then obviously go through a rigorous weight descent and weight making strategies and unable to refuel effectively, this will negatively affect performance. And seen it too many times where an athlete is trying to cram themselves into a weight category so they get a size advantage, and that affects their performance. So many boxers you hear after a fight, if they've lost, they go, oh, it was a weight cut, I'm too big for this weight category now, I'm going to move up. So many times I see that with either with athletes that I work with or people that I'm watching as a fan at home. Always prioritize performance. Be honest with yourself. Do you think that you perform as optimally at that weight category? If not, move up, because there's not that much difference, especially in boxing, between the weight categories. So if you feel like having that size advantage is affecting your actual performance in the ring, have a word with your coach and be like, right, you might need to move up, so I'm making weight more effectively so I can unlock the potential and perform to the best of my ability. So yeah, definitely look at performance instead of size. And recently, Lee Rickards had to have this conversation with two athletes that I've been working with, Fran Hennessy and Micah Michaels, about what weight category they should be going in the national championships. And they actually decided to go up a weight category instead of trying to make the weight category below what they was that they were targeting initially, to make sure that they're improving their performance in the gym and in the ring on fight night. And with these two athletes, they actually won the national championships in their weight category that Lee suggested for them to go in. So this is a huge win for us when we're trying to have this kind of tussle between size and performance, and weight category and performance. So yeah, congratulations to them two. Obviously their skill and the work that they've been doing in the gym has helped them, but making that decision to be in the higher weight category has actually helped them enhance their performance even more. So yeah, here are my top 5 tips on effective weight cutting strategies. I'm sorry if you came for any sort of diet, any kind of tips and strategies. Like I say, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm a strength conditioning coach. If you do want to get a nutritionist on board, I've put a link in the description as well as a promo code for our bespoke nutrition service that Lee Rickards will give you online. He'll have an online consultation with you, know about your preferences, like any kind of food requirements that you have, your upcoming competitions, and give you a tailored bespoke nutrition plan to help you hit them body composition goals, but also make weight safely and effectively. So I'll put the promo code below along with the link, and you can sign up to that and get in touch with Lee and get your bespoke nutrition service. If you want to find out more about nutrition for boxing, another promo code that's going to come up here for our nutrition handbook for boxing. Get a 30% discount on this, so then you can try and improve your knowledge and also get some more kind of strategies around nutrition for boxing, so make sure that you're fueling your performance and making weight safely and effectively. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hopefully see you on the next episode of Ask Boxing Science.